Hello and welcome to another video, and today I'm going over the events of August 12th and 13th. I apologize for not being here yesterday, but today I'll just go over quickly what happened previously yesterday and also today. It might take some time, but I'm hoping to just keep it to a minimum because there were a lot of events and we have to talk about that. So let's get right into it. In Kherson, we have a lot of news today. So the AFU, they're talking about how they've destroyed a lot of ammo depots deeper into Kherson, and a lot of that can't really be confirmed, but they did also talk about some fires reaching as far deep into Melitopol. But what is more confirmed, stuff that has actually been confirmed by the Russian side, is some of the strikes on Kakhovka and the hydroelectric plant. So yesterday there were 6 HIMARS shells that were launched over there, and they got intercepted according to the Russians, and we didn't really have much damage from yesterday's strikes. But then today it was hit again, and there was some extensive damage to the plant and to the bridge area. There was already damage beforehand. I talked about it in my last video. So basically what happened was 3 out of the 6 turbines in the electric plant ceased operating, and then 1 out of the 4 hydro aggregators also stopped operating. So now the facility is in emergency mode, and there could potentially be major ramifications for the people living around here. There are hundreds of thousands of people living in this area of Kakhovka, Novokakhovka, Kherson, and this would also indirectly affect the Zaporizhzhia power plant if the hydroelectric plant stopped operating. And it's already not really at full capacity, and this is only going to make the situation deteriorate even more. So if Ukraine continues to strike this, it could be a big disaster. And a lot of people have talked about the Zaporizhzhia as a disaster, but this could be another big disaster that is in the making. Now, the governor of the Mykolaiv region, Vitaly Kim, he says that Russia has started moving their military commanders, their higher-ups, from the west side of Kherson to the eastern part. And I don't know if that's true, but it is certainly possible if, for their own safety, if Ukraine continues with the HIMARS and in these strikes deeper into Kherson. I think Russia's best course of action now would be to create this big buffer in between the Kakhovka area, all the key logistical hubs over there, and also the key logistical hubs in Kherson itself, the city. There has to be a larger buffer in order for the Russians to sleep well over there, because it is a constant issue in terms of like transportation to the western part of Kherson that's under Russian control, when you have Ukrainians with HIMARS destroying it each time. And we might see that because in Blahodatne there was talk from some Russian sources that it was captured, this town over here. I don't think it was. We didn't really hear about it from any other sources, so I'm keeping it contested. But again, it would be a big loss, and then the Russians would move to Pervomaiske. So potentially what happens is Russia, they push towards Lupereve again. They take over Posad Pokrovske, and they kick out the Ukrainians from this polygon over here that I have colored. And then they also would probably want to kick out the Ukrainians from this part of Kherson because of the potential for a counteroffensive that penetrates deep into the Russian lines. Since they're not the strongest over here, it is possible that they'd want to inch closer to Kryvyi, shell it more, and also, of course, they could shell Nikopol as well, because of the fact that Nikopol and Maharnets have been used as the staging grounds for all the attacks on the Zaporizhzhia power plants. Now, in Kherson over the past few days, Russia has reported on the specific losses of the AFU, so I'm going to list them out, but again, we don't really know if it's true. So, a few days ago, pretty sure it was 2 days ago, Russia reported that Ukraine had 41 killed in action and wounded. They say that 9 armored vehicles were destroyed, 7 T-64s, and that 2 platoons of Grad MLRS and 1 Uragan MLRS were destroyed. And today, over 200 troops were destroyed, quote unquote. That could be killed, wounded, or anything else. 3 BMP-1s, 5 T-64s, and then 4 HIMARS shells were intercepted by the air defenses. Now, another thing to know here is that the Kulbakino Air Base is being rebuilt, and it's on the eastern periphery of Mykolaiv over here. This one, it was previously damaged by the Russians, but now Ukraine is starting to use it again. And this comes as we've heard news from Slovakia that they're planning to send MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine. So that's interesting. Another 2 Ukrainian Mi-24s helicopters, they were also destroyed in the Mykolaiv region, by the way. And there was a strike on a patrol vehicle in Posad Pokrovsky, and I forgot to include geolocation for it, but just know that it happened over there. That's really it for Kherson. We might see this front sort of heat up due to what I described earlier with the desperate state that the hydroelectric plant is in. But for now, another area where there seems to be a lot of tension, not necessarily on in terms of ground being changed, because we haven't seen any advances here in Zaporizhzhia, but we have seen a lot of drama around here, and I want to sort of elaborate on what's happened yesterday and today. So the IAEA, they're trying to send a mission to the Zaporizhzhia power plants, and it seems as if the Russian and the Zaporizhzhian authorities in this area, they're open to letting them in. And the UN and the G7 countries, they're calling for a demilitarized zone around the power plants. And then you had, of course, America say that they want Ukraine to take back control of the power plants, which won't happen. So the Zaporizhzhia officials, they're saying that they're willing to show proof that the AFU was responsible for the shelling. And they also said that the plant is at 70% capacity. And they're saying that they potentially also supply Crimea. So maybe that would be another reason why Ukraine would want to put an end to the operations of the power plants, or sort of create pandemonium that would somehow diplomatically get the plant transferred to them in some way, but that's very unlikely. A lot of people are stressing over the fact that this would be a Chernobyl 2.0, but this is very unlikely. I would say the main threat is to the power lines, and that all the people in Zaporizhzhia, including the ones living in Ukraine controlled territory, they would be in they would probably lose power in like about 30 kilometer like a radius of the plant. They would be most affected by it. The reason why this wouldn't turn into like some nuclear leak that would cause this huge zone where nobody would like be able to live is because the reactors, they're protected by these like 10-meter concrete walls. It would be very difficult to penetrate through. It would take a nuclear weapon to penetrate those walls. It's just not likely. And the Russians, they're reporting the pumping station was damaged in the power plant, and that comes from the shelling yesterday, because there was a lot of shelling yesterday. They also say that the radiation sensors are damaged, which is a big problem. There were 5 shells that the AFU launched at the plant yesterday, and this in addition to that, they were also firing 152 millimeter guns from Nikopol at the plant. This was done by the 44th Artillery Brigade. So you are seeing this pattern of continued strikes at these facilities. I really hope it gets resolved somehow, but we'll have to wait and see. Nothing much besides that in Zaporizhzhia. I will say, though, that in Donetsk, there's continued talk about attacks on Velika and Novosilka, although I think it is going to be very difficult for Russia to overrun the defenses here, since this was the line that Ukraine was able to stabilize around after their initial failures in the south. And ever since then, we haven't really seen much of an advance. We did see some advances in the southern towns, but Vermivka, Velika, and Novosilka probably not going to fall, especially given the fact that the Ukrainians, they can use this river over here to their advantage. So I think those reports are premature. Nothing's really changed over here. Again, talks about Pavlivka being attacked, but no real changes to my knowledge. Besides that, we have to go on to Marinka. And in Marinka, at this point, there are like 0 civilians that are present in the town. It's just the Russians and Ukrainians, of course. And basically, the Russian artillery, they've been spending the past 4 weeks around here just suppressing the firing positions of the AFU, since they've had some pretty advantageous positions around the town. They had some of the high ground, the hills, and now Russia has been able to take it by reaching Druzhby Avenue, where the current line is still there. Although I think Russia will have to make that final push along Kashtanova Street and take over the rest of Marinka. If that were to happen, it would break the Ukrainian lines that they've been setting up around here, and it would expose these other towns around this road to also being attacked by Russia. They could have fire control around it. The 66th Mechanized Brigade, they're the Ukrainian unit that's being situated around here at the moment, and they are suffering some heavy losses, but they're still in this western part of the town. Marinka, we're not really seeing changes as of yet, but there will be some changes soon to the front line. And then once we are, Krasnohorivka will, of course, be attacked. In Pisky, this is the place where we have a lot of news to go over. And I did include some other geolocations, so I don't know where they are. I might have accidentally deleted them, but I did have some geolocations included in here. There was videos of Russia in this apartment complex around here, and I'm going to go over what they control and what they don't control, because it is sort of difficult. The Somali battalion, they released a video in this school area. This is a video from a while ago, like a few days ago, and now Russia currently controls this position. But I think this is the school that the video was filmed in by the Somali battalion. So they shelled the school and they eventually took it over. And around the same place, they took the cultural center, they took the city council. There's fighting around the kindergarten in the northwestern part of the town. And there's this Donetsk Institute for Plant Industry that was also taken by the Russians, and I think that's around this like apartment complex, which was under fire by thermobaric rockets by the TOS-1A, and the place that was targeted, that was a pretty big game changer. It destroyed a lot of Ukrainian positions in those high-rise buildings, and it sort of forced their hand into withdrawing further to the northwest. So now Russia does control the vast majority of the town, although you still have some Ukrainian resistance in the northwest around here and in these forest areas and in these houses. But since these are not high-rise buildings, it could take less time to push them out of here. And then the next logical position for Ukraine would be along this road over here, where they could set up some concrete fortifications that would keep the Russians at bay for a while. But I'm not sure if they would be able to do this quickly enough if Russia does push towards Opitny, Pervomaiske. If they're able to push quickly enough, then they could create a bulge in the front lines, which Ukraine would then have to be they'd have to give up some land in order to solidify this new front line. And who knows what that would be. They would probably have to give up Nivelske and sort of situate around Pervomaiske and these lakes around here. I would say that once Pisky falls, which it is about to fall, based on a lot of footage that's out there, which I did have linked here, so I am pretty angry that it's not included. And also to apologize for the map looking sort of off. Once I get back from my vacation, I'm going to fix all of the problems with this map because it does look pretty ugly. Anyway, once Pisky does fall, I would say they're going to head towards Opitny and Avdiivka in general. And that would just be a huge loss for the Ukrainians. Besides that, Pisky is about to fall, but no real news besides that from this area. The Ukrainians, they did shell Horlivka, and they destroyed, or at least damaged a styrol plant, and it caught fire around there. There was no military equipment there to my knowledge, but anyway, there was also power outages in certain districts in Donetsk due to shelling of the electrical station there as well today. In Toretsk, we have some news about reports that the locals are saying how the troops there, they're moving artillery and these military vehicles towards the center of the city and through the streets. They are preparing for an upcoming battle. There were premature reports about Toretsk falling, but that just does not make sense because there are like 3 other settlements that would have to be taken in order for Toretsk to fall. And it is a huge city. There were also talks that Alexandropol has fallen. I don't know if that's true. It is possible. And if it does fall, then that would probably be a sign that Russia is looking to take over Toretsk. But I would say in order to do that, they should probably take over New York first, and then that would give them some fire control over Toretsk, and they can flank it from both the south and from the east. So keep an eye out for the city because it is one of the main cities on the front line that hasn't fallen. No real news from Zaporizhzhia. Just continued clashes around here that are getting more intense. I would say Ukraine does still control at least part of the town. Kadema, there were talks about this, the Russians reaching the center of the town. I'm not sure about that. I haven't seen any footage from Kadema, unfortunately. So I'm not changing anything over there. Now, Bakhmut, this is where we have some interesting news from Bakhmut. There was some footage that Ukraine released of their forces along the Patrice Lumumbi Street. I do have the geolocation for that. I found it. So I'm going to link it into the map once I'm done with this video. But I don't have it on me now. I just know it was around here on the street over here. in regards to Bakhmut itself, there was reports of some fighting in the furniture plant. So I want to find that around here because I do recall looking at it on Google Maps. I do apologize, but the furniture plant, it was around here. There was fighting there, but again, no footage to talk about as of yet. In recent hours, there was talk about a lot of artillery in this district around here. A lot of fighting going on here, but again, the lines are still pretty static as of now. But look out for what happens in Bakhmut. In Soledar, I showed that Bakhmutske is fully under the control of the Russians now, and that the 14th Brigade of the Ukrainians, it suffered about 2,000 losses in Soledar as of now, according to the Russians. So those are some pretty large numbers, but they have been able to keep most of Soledar under the control of the Ukrainians for now. We have a lot of news from the Siversk front as well, where there's reports of advances towards Vesele, Vimka, Ivano-Darivka, and I did make some adjustments to the maps, so I don't know why they got deleted, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, my map, it did show that Russia did inch closer to Vimka and to Vesele, and also around Bilohorivka, so I apologize for not having that included. We've also known now for a while that Brestove is fully under the control of the Russians. Around Yakovlivka, this is not under their control. Russia is not that far deep into it. The Russians, they are still conducting artillery strikes around here, but they don't have a foothold in the town just yet, besides this southern part, which is on the southern part of the road. There was some video that was alleged to be from Yakovlivka, but I think it was from Volodymyrivka. But for now, the good thing is that Russia does have the high ground around here, so they are able to basically have fire control of the town. Ukraine, they said that, the Russians, they said that they're using residential buildings to defend themselves in the Yakovlivka area. I really doubt that there are many civilians there, though. Most of them probably fled because of the fighting that's been very intense for months now. Siversk, there's been some heavy shelling over here, and there were many attempts at advancing around Verkhnokamianske, and it is possible that this will finally materialize because we've seen so many assaults, especially from the south, where once Bilohorivka and Yakovlivka fall, that will be really the entire line of defense of the Ukrainian falls around here. And then the next line would be around Zvanivka. So that would give Russia, first of all, an opportunity to attack Siversk from the south, and it will give them another attempt at attacking Soledar from a different direction. So do look out for that if the Ukrainian front line does crack around there. In Slavyansk, a Su-25 was shot down. That's all I have to say for Slavyansk. But in Kramatorsk, the Russians, they allegedly destroyed a HIMARS launcher and ammo depot in that city, and there were explosions there yesterday. Besides that, I don't have much besides the events in Kharkiv. In Kharkiv, there was talks about the reorganization of Ukrainian and Russian troops in anticipation for some renewed fighting. And it seems as if Russia has made the first move around here in an attempt at an offensive towards this town over here called Zolochiv. This one over here. It is it's not that big, but it would be a big victory for Russia on this front if they were able to take it. So what's being said is that they took Udi, but I already had Udi under Russian control for a while now. Maybe I was wrong, but there's a good chance that it was always under Russian control, and that now they're just claiming that they captured it for like a symbolic victory. But for sure, a new gain for the Russians was this town over here, Ohorobivka. And not to be confused with this Ohorobivka because there are several. But this is really on the border with Russia, so it does make sense that they would be able to pretty easily capture it. Now, the question is if they will be able to advance to Zolochiv if they actually attempted to. They would first have to dislodge the Ukrainians at Svitlichny, which is a more like fortified town, which the Ukrainians were able to push the Russians out of. It is also possible that they go from Tsupivka, Purdyanka, which are two towns that are pretty fortified, and if they were able to take control of this road around here, they would have a good opportunity to reach Slatine, which is another important town, and then the most important town in this area would be Derachi before Kharkiv itself. But that's really looking more into the future, not really related to the front line currently. Now, there's a lot of talk about the Ukrainian losses over the past few days. I talked about the ones in Solidar, but those are not the only ones. About 50% of the 14th and 60th Mechanized Brigades in Bakhmut have already been casualties, not necessarily killed, but like wounded or POW, things like that. And there are a lot of desertions that are being reported, which is understandable given the very grim conditions. All of the POWs being taken are middle-aged men. I did talk about that in the Zaporizhzhia video, but there were videos from Pisky of prisoners because there were some prisoners taken over there. And there too, many people were just middle-aged men over there. And that is pretty grim because they were able to hold the line, but at what cost? Besides that, there's one more thing that is important to look out for. The Russians, they actually they changed who would be commanding the Black Sea Fleet, so I want to talk about that. Basically, Putin, he dismissed the commander of the Black Sea Fleet. His name was Igor Osipov, and he was replaced with the Vice Admiral Viktor Sokolov. And this is pretty understandable given the fact that Moscow was sunk, regardless of whether it was an accident or actually a Ukrainian strike. It doesn't matter. It was still a big loss for the Black Sea Fleet. And more recently, you had the drone attack that attacked the base in Sevastopol. So clearly this guy, he wasn't having things under control. So it makes sense that he was replaced. And this is not the first replacement. There were a lot of replacements after the withdrawal from Kiev. So we'll see if this actually changes the dynamics around the Black Sea. I'm not exactly sure. But clearly this is an admission that there was some incompetency in the ranks of the Russians. That's it for now. And thank you all for watching. And I'll see you later.